what it told me. Oh, okay, we're live now.
Great. All right. All right. So I'm gonna give some of our attendees a couple of minutes, and it's gonna give 1 or 2 minutes before we get going. So thank you guys for being here on time. so, so I'm just gonna give another minute or so, and then we will get started.
Hey everyone, how you doing?
Hi, Adrian.
Hey Prof. Hey Trevor. Hey Joel.
Oh, Trevor, you're muted.
Adrian, how are you doing?
Good.
We are about to start. Adrian, we need to see you. We're not seeing you. Need some light. so, but okay. Um, once Adrian comes back, we will start, and we'll get this show on the road. Ah, yes, right there, right there. Great. That's great. Okay. All right. So, um, see, we have people joining on YouTube and a couple joining on LinkedIn. So, it's gonna give a couple more minutes. How is Canada, Adrian? You're muted. But that's okay.
Well, I said I feel cold. Everyone's telling me it's warm.
Okay.
So yeah.
Gotcha. All right. So I'm gonna get started. I want to welcome everyone who's watching with us today. My name is Trevor Forrest. I will be your host for this edition of Tech Talk Tuesday from JTDA. Before we get into the meat of the discussion, just want to do some housekeeping. So first, I want you to remember that on July 25th, that's when we'll have the next Tech Talk. And that Tech Talk will be, the topic of that one will be pivoting into tech. It's going to be a very, very interesting discussion there. On the 13th of July, we're going to have a JTDA members mingle themed Connect, Collaborate, Succeed. And there'll be more details about that on between now and then. And you can stay tuned on our social media channels. And speaking of social media channels, you can find JTDA at the JTDA, and that's on all social media channels: Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, and so on. And finally, I want to make a special appeal to our viewers to donate to the Tech Alliance Fund. You will get the link to that in the chat, or you can go to the JTDA website at jtda.org, and you'll get all the information about the Tech Alliance Fund and what it's meant to do and how it's meant to help. All right, so remember, we're streaming on YouTube and LinkedIn, so share with all your friends and all those who are not your friends. This evening, we are going to have a very interesting discussion, and we have an esteemed panel of guests, right? Let me introduce them. The first guest is Mr. Adrian Dunkley. Adrian is the founder and CEO of StarApple AI. He is a member of the JTDA as well. But not only is he a member, he's the president of the JTDA. He's also the VP of Data and Decision Sciences for Cornerstone Bank.
Well, actually was.
Was? Okay, you're not
Not
here anymore?
moved on. Yeah, moved on.
Okay.
Yeah.
One thing I know, though, is you're a recent recipient of an innovation award.
Yeah.
All right, good. So,
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure of that one. Adrian has 12 years of experience in the technology field, spanning data science, AI, in various verticals, finance, travel, customer experience, and so on. So when we're talking about AI, Adrian is a great resource to have on our panel to speak about that. Our next guest is Dr. Gunjan Mansingh. Gunjan, can I say professor?
Yeah. Yes, you can.
Okay, great. All right, I just want to make sure. Professor, big difference there. Gunjan Mansingh. And she's head of the Department of Computing at UE. Very distinguished individual, has participated in numerous IT initiatives. Is on was on a number of government boards related to ICT.
Still am. But
Still am. Okay, good. With all the changes occurring, I have to navigate that one carefully. She, teaches us a lot of courses at both the undergraduate and graduate level, in computer science, information systems, BI, AI, and analytics. So another excellent resource for this discussion today. And finally, we have Mr. Joel Dean. Now, Joel is a senior software engineer at Automattic. Some people might not immediately know Automattic, but some people might know WordPress. And WordPress is a content management platform. Automattic is behind the the maintenance of WordPress. Um, so great resource there for that. But Joel has been one individual that has attained an interesting honor. Um, he he attained the Prime Minister's Youth Award for Excellence in Science and Technology.
Wow.
And he's been in the industry for about 13 years now. So again, he's very experienced in building applications for mobile devices, iPhones, Android, and a host of other things in that realm. So again, and when I look at the list here, I feel very comfortable that any of the things that we are going to discuss, our panelists are more than capable and able to respond. Now, before I get into the meat of the matter, I want to introduce my co-host. His name is Andre. So I'd like Andre to introduce himself. Check this out.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Andre. I will be your co-host tonight. Welcome to another edition of... Good evening, everyone. My name is Andre. I will be your co-host tonight.
You guys are hearing Andre.
Welcome to another edition of the Jamaica Technology and Digital Alliance Tech Talk Tuesday webinar. Hello, Adrian. Hello, Gunjan, and hello, Joel. It's a pleasure to have you with us this evening. Today, we will be discussing how artificial intelligence is transforming the world as we know it. We will explore the challenges that organizations face when adopting AI technologies, how the government must ensure responsible and ethical use of AI, while fostering innovation. We will also look at any potential risks or dangers associated with the rapid advancement of AI technologies, and most importantly, how AI and human workers can collaborate effectively in the workplace of the future. We hope this will be an informative and fulfilling discussion. Let's get started. Trevor, over to you.
Thank you very much, Andre. I couldn't help myself. I had to do that one, right?
And it's interesting. It's cool. It's pretty cool.
Our topic is, artificial intelligence and how it's transforming the world as we know it. And I thought it fit to start with an AI-generated co-host, just to give you an idea of where AI is when it comes to, mimicking humans, mimicking voices, and so on. I thought it would be a good start for our discussion today. So, with that said, my first question, and I'm going to pose this to each panelist, and I'm going to start with Gunjan. Talk a little bit, give you 60 seconds to talk a little bit about how you see AI impacting and revolutionizing, industries and sectors across the globe. So I'll start with you, Gunjan, and then I will go to Adrian and then Joe.
Trevor, I loved Andre. I think his presence in the show just shows a lot about what AI can do and what we should be mindful that it can do. And in just the rise of AI, I think it's very important that we compare it to some similar things that have happened in past. Like I remember when calculators probably came into being, and people were probably responding to them in the same way. Or Andrew Nung actually was comparing the rise of AI to literacy. That in days gone by, only a few people could read. And the priest and the priestesses and the monks would be the ones who were capable of reading, and everybody else would go and listen to them. And then they realized that you would have a much richer society if everybody could read and write. in AI, initially it was in the hands of priests and priestesses. Only the few tech companies, the researchers were using AI. And now what happened in 2022 November was that it was put in the hands of a common person. Now, and so it was taken away from the ivory tower of the priest and priestesses. Now, is that a good thing or a bad thing? That is what we have to it will unfold in the years to come. So, we have to make sure that when there is a change, there's a paradigm shift, we are putting there are certain responsibilities that we do it with. So I think the rise of AI and where it's going and how it's impacting every person, like literacy impacts every person, same way AI will be impacting every person. Hence, its potential is still unknown, I think.
Andre, oh sorry, him Andre. Adrian, I call Andre name and
Yeah, you know that.
Adrian, your
Yeah,
thoughts?
so big thing with AI, it's a force multiplier, it's a value generator. And if you have a bad idea, AI isn't going to improve it. If you have a bad product or service, AI isn't going to improve it. But it allows you to do a lot more with a lot less resources. I look back at where we were even a year and a half ago, building everything from scratch for each client that we had access to. Now we have access to APIs, open source and private, that we can utilize to make things more efficient. And considering the limited talent available globally with AI, it's allowed us to really accelerate providing value to our clients. But at the same time, we're seeing a lot of risks with companies and individuals kind of just plugging into it with not necessarily understanding how things work. So that educational component is really important to avoid a lot of ethical and bias concerns. Things are going on right now that are going to have a huge impact on noticeable proportions of global populations, because they don't really understand how these things are built, the limitations, how they should be used or not used. But you're having access to it. So you look at, for instance, Midjourney being sued, copyright due to artists, right? Or choppers, scammers using same AI tools to imitate your voice and your mannerisms to fool people. All the things are going on right now. The technology accelerating significantly. It's just for us to put certain controls without limiting innovation, which is going to be very sticky. But overall, I'm excited for it. I'm not worried about it taking over the world. I'd say that.
Great. Joel, your thoughts?
I think what's happening with AI right now is a natural progression of what scientists have wanted for computers to do all along. With computers, we have progressed from simple apps that we click around on to mobile devices, and now we can actually talk to them. So I think that's the most interesting thing about AI right now. We are getting to a place where we are removing the barrier to entry basically removing the barrier to entry of how humans communicate with the technology. There are good sides to that and there are bad sides to that. I would say the good side to that is that currently we have seen that a lot of users and people are pretty excited about generating essays and helping it to do work for them to accelerate the pace at which they work. I'm able to generate code that would take me hours to build. But on the flip side of that, we're looking at certain challenges, as Andre and Professor Mansingh had discussed, where artificial intelligence is capable of a lot of devious tasks. I'm seeing Twitter right now being flooded with chatbots imitating people. I am seeing voices being generated as well. And there's not an existential risk with the current models, because the current models are primarily text and image generation. They cannot think, they do simulate reason ability to some extent due to the statistical nature of the models and just how they can respond based on the queries that you give them. But I know that these scientists are pretty excited and they will not stop tinkering around until they get the models to do some really interesting things. So I am very excited about the future, but I'm still a bit concerned, and I'm really looking forward to legislation and policy that we can put in place from a local and government standpoint to ensure that we control its usage and deployment.
Great stuff, great stuff. So what I'm hearing is there's a fair amount of excitement, cautious excitement over the developments in AI. But there's something interesting that Adrian mentioned that I kind of wanted to delve into a little bit, because one of the biggest discussions, arguments, concerns, myths surrounding AI is, the fact that, AI is going to replace jobs and take away a lot of jobs. And, the World Economic Forum, through, I think it was Stanford University, did and published some interesting research about what will happen to the job market as a result of AI. And the short version is, while there will be some job losses, there will be a net increase in jobs as it relates to the impact of AI. Adrian spoke about AI being a force multiplier. I thought it was an interesting way to speak about it. What do you mean by that, and how is AI becoming this force multiplier? And what are some of the things that, or tools or platforms out there perhaps that you may have come across that facilitates this force multiplier effect of AI?
So I'll start with a statistic. Love statistics. So we ran a study earlier this year with a group of our clients, and on the low end, what they experienced was a 26% improvement in efficiency using tools in their regular process flows, right? And these are readily available tools. So ChatGPT, Bing, Microsoft Designer, DALL-E, Midjourney, and a whole lot of slower tools, right? And the feedback was not what we expected. I would say that maybe we're being a little too optimistic in regards to the viewpoint, but it was basically, 25%, that's almost 1/20, that's a day. So we can use less people to get the same level of work done, which means less money being spent on salaries. Or we could shift to a 4-day work week, pay them less and get the same output or more, right? So that's the viewpoint of these employers, right? I'm not gonna name names. But the force multiplier component is, with these tools, you can get an experienced person, or let's say a less experienced person, to do higher quality output in a lower period of time in a state that's more accurate and more reproducible. But the idea is they need to start off with a certain level of subject matter expertise. Because with these generative AI models, accuracy is a concern, right? So they talk about it creating certain facts, trying to please, and all these things. Right. So it's about, again, doing more with less. And that comes even to the point of creativity. So we have marketing individuals that are able to push out significantly more content that is more customized for different customer segments in a shorter period of time with less resources and less costs on you, because a lot of these tools are actually free. From a more traditional standpoint, individuals that are working on more clerical tasks, they're using these tools to write more appropriate letters, plans. Right. So many things are coming out of it. But the big thing is you're getting more value for way less overall input versus before.
Right, and I mean, I'm happy you made those points. I want to kind of segue from those points into a question for Professor Mansingh. One of the things Adrian mentioned was, while AI can make people better at what they do or some of the tasks that they do, he did mention that there has to be some degree of subject matter expertise or knowledge, because the way AI works is it learns from information that's out there. Well, if there's bad information out there, the output from AI will be bad as well, garbage in, garbage out. What I want to ask you, Professor Mansingh, is in moving down the pathway of embracing AI, especially at the low level, mid level, high level, uh, from an educational standpoint, academia standpoint, what are some of the things that we need to focus on in order to make sure that the workforce, the graduates, and so on, are aptly prepared for the reality that they're going to run into when they get out there, as it relates to what AI is meant to do, and what you teach AI subjects as well. What's happening in academia to treat with this reality?
So I will use the same terminology of Adrian, force multiplier. And to me, the force multiplier, what we are multiplying it with, we don't even know that. As you spoke about the jobs being lost and jobs being created. So we are basically training people to exist in a world which we don't know what it will be like.
Right.
So I think that's an important place. And hence, understanding and using these tools appropriately becomes very, very critical. Right now in academia, there was a big concern whether these can be used for cheating. And my thing is that how do we use it as a teaching tool versus a cheating tool? So we have to integrate it in our learning process. It's like, for example, we take a calculator for granted. If somebody is just using a calculator and adding, we are not seeing it as a mechanism of finding a shortcut in the learning process. That is after that they have learned how to do the arithmetic and mathematics is like, they understand the concept. And when they use the tool after understanding the concept, it is absolutely okay. The same thing, I think what you're saying is that when someone understands the subject and they are using the tool in the learning process, it is absolutely acceptable. But we have to change how academia is currently functioning. We have to change the assessment methods. We have to even change the teaching methods. Meaning, I was, when ChatGPT came into being, I was experimenting, and every assignment that I give in first year and first 6 weeks, we have a course. It can do it quite happily. So how am I going to integrate it in my learning process? But does that mean the students don't need to learn programming? They, of course, need to understand how to program and understand how to read a code, how to read code. They may not, they can use the tool to generate the code, but then they should be able to go through it to understand that it has generated the right thing. And we are not now living in a black box that we are using code created by these machines and we don't know what it's doing. So as humans, we have to be, we have to understand what is being created by these machines. And I think the challenge for us right now in the computer science department is to see how to use it in the learning process, because people will try to find shortcuts. But the truth is that they need to know both. They need to be that subject matter expert, and they also need to use this tool and see how it merges together. But for several other disciplines, I think that the assessment methods will have to change. It can't all be about memory recall kind of things. And the students have to be mindful, that this is not a search engine.
Right,
In
right,
search
right.
engine, you go and you're basically getting something from somewhere. Now, this is generating content. This is generating, words that belong together. So in a predictive way. Now, the words that it's picking up as belonging together, do they really make sense in the context of the question you're being asked? You have to be
Right.
very mindful about
Yes, yes. So, with that said, Joel, you do a lot of programming, but you also work with huge teams on a global level. Um, can you speak a little bit to how you guys are using AI to streamline some of the tasks that you have? What are some of the things that you've come across? Some of the challenges, some of the neat things that you've come across, some of the not so neat things that you've come across as it relates to the environment you work in, coding, maintaining, and so on, that kind of could shed a light on some of the things that as Professor Mansingh says, that you have to think about when you're starting to use this technology as part of making your work flow more efficient?
Yeah, that's a really good question. One of the core things that we have had to be utilizing to govern our usage is AI in its current form is here to augment the human experience. So augment knowledge work, not automate it. And I think this is a big part of the discussion because a lot of folks think it's here to automate the work that we do. But based on the discussion we're having, it hallucinates, it makes up information. And we cannot, you can pass in the same prompt and it generates different results on every successful
Hold
one.
hold on a second. So wait, no, you used a word there a while ago. Some people know it, some people may not know it. You say
Okay, understood.
right?
Okay.
So
Okay.
tell me a little bit about the AI hallucination and how that works, because some people may not understand entirely how that works.
Yeah, so AI hallucination is basically a fancy term for how clearly Professor Mansingh explained it. It's basically the model utilizing its statistical capabilities and the weights that it has assigned to the different words in its training data set to provide an output that it deems correct. But that output, it could be wrong, but it could sound extremely accurate. I think that's the very tricky part. So that's the part that it's interesting. I've had to be looking out for in my work environment because I'll get a task. I'll get a task.
If you have it code for you,
exactly,
you have to go and check the code.
Exactly, and sometimes it looks extremely. It looks right, and I think it's right.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, this is really right. And then I get a bit of nervous feeling in my stomach, and I'm like, Joel, you don't understand the code that this thing just wrote. You need to go through it line by line. And even in some of those cases, I realized it would probably have been easier if I had written this myself instead, based on the mental overload it's causing on me to actually review that output. Because what we have to realize about the work environment now is when we generate information with AI, we have to own that information. Recently, there was a case where some lawyers utilized ChatGPT to generate some information for a case, and it was false information that sounded accurate. So that's one of the biggest concerns we're experiencing in our work environment.
So I like what Joel just said, that if you're generating something, you must own it. I think that's critical.
Right. So, Adrian, I mean, you have one of the premier AI companies locally. How are you using the technology? What is your vision of how AI will augment a lot of the things that we do, and kind of factor in some of the things that you might be working on as one of the premier AI development companies?
Yeah. So prior to the ChatGPT period renaissance, I don't know if you want to call it that because the impact is harder, we had very specific services offered to our clients. We build this AI model, we test this model, we validate, very straightforward. We train all that stuff. What's effectively happened now is because some of our clients are yearning generative AI to be integrated into their businesses right now. We're actually having to test these things for them. So we're actually creating pseudo companies, new roles, specific tasks. We're recreating their business lines and then using AI in it to test it for two reasons: figuring out what's the best way to use it, figuring out what the worst way to use it, and then to really quantify the risks, upside and downside risks associated with that. So ethics, bias, how it's going to impact data protection, um, a lot of things around, okay, if we're using these tools, are we manipulating our clients because they're so effective? And then the rebuttal is, well, a human could do it. When a human does, it's not manipulation. Why is it manipulation when an AI does the same thing? So these kind of gray area questions we have to look at, and it's a lot of back and forth going through these things, and we're using experts outside of our fields as well. So we're speaking to psychologists, we're speaking to ethicists, we're speaking to policy developers, because we're trying to get as much feedback as possible, because there's no blueprint as yet in terms of what we're doing. In terms of where I see it going, the big thing is obviously generative AI, but integrated in a way where I'm expecting in a year, it's just normal and we don't call it AI anymore. Because you never say, oh, when you get on a plane and there's autopilot, the AI is responsible for 300 lives on a plane. It's just autopilot, right? Because you're so used to it, right? You don't view it as a form of artificial intelligence, right? So I'm expecting it to be so integrated that we take it for granted again and we don't call it AI. We're just going to get bored of it. I'm seeing a lot of tools. So Google, Microsoft are really pushing down on this, and you're going to have all these things integrated very effectively. And a lot of it's going to be free. Aside from that, the big prediction for me is I'm expecting the first Caribbean unicorn to basically be materialized using generative AI. And I'm not saying it's necessarily us, but that's what I'm expecting to see in the next 2 years.
Okay.
We're even working on fashion generative AI stuff focused on women of color using cosmetic products. I don't really know anything about that here, as you can see, but if there's a demand and a client willing to pay for it and it can provide some value, then it's something to look at, right?
Right,
So
right.
I'm really excited for what I'm seeing right now, and I'm amazed at the level of not even innovation, but people who didn't think they could do certain things even 8 months ago, being able to utilize these free resources and develop these products they just had in their head.
Great. Let me ask you, and I kind of want to go around the panel, and for the benefit as well of the viewers, what are some of the coolest AI tools that you guys have seen out there? I mean, I've seen a couple that positively blow my mind. The interestingly enough, chat continues to impress me. But what are some of the cool tools that you've seen out there, AI based tools that you've seen out there, that kind of make you say, yeah, this wicked. Adrian, you want to start, and then I'll.
Yeah, sure. How much time I have?
No, but
Okay.
just give me
One.
three that you have seen.
Three. Okay, so there's a company called Runway, and they're working on video generation. We were in Mobile the other day. Yeah, we did a full AI generated video. So this wasn't pitch patch. Literally prompting. The music was developed using one of Facebook has a new music generator. The verbiage GPT-4 for that. So the entire thing was developed using AI tools from scratch. And obviously it's not amazing cinematic quality, but this is the worst it's ever going to be, and it took minutes to generate it. So that really amazed me in terms of what it was able to do. Yeah, so that's my top.
Okay.
For June. That's my top for June. Ask me in 4 days.
All right, got you.
Yeah.
Joel, which one is amazing you right now?
I think the one that's amazing me the most is this company called 11 Labs, and they do voice generation. And the ability of their models to generate voices is just next level. It's actually quite scary at this point how good it is. And over the past couple of months, we saw people generating voices of certain musicians and like creating songs. And
Yeah,
these
man.
songs were getting extremely popular on TikTok.
Yeah, yes.
So yeah, 11 Labs is the top company.
Yeah, man.
For me.
Yeah, man. Know about that one too. Gunjan?
I really don't have any favorites, but if you really ask me, I would say WordTune and Beautiful AI. WordTune, for editing and doing all kinds of
Beautiful AI,
things.
yes.
And Beautiful AI for creating presentations.
Yes.
But 2 years ago, we had created some music. We had done a research project on AI and creativity. And, we are talking about all these AI tasks. And when they were repetitive tasks, it was beautiful. But then we had shown how it can be used in creative tasks. And we had created music using, there was a country song, there was a reggae song, there was content, there was poetry. And I just would like to, bring a discussion on some of the negative implications of that too. So, right, we are creating all this content. So is everyone else. I generated a poem called Run the Race in Miss Lou style. It's a beautiful poem, sounds like Miss Lou, but if I try and read it, my sons will go have a laughing fit. Do I own that poetry? Do I own that poem? And the cultural misappropriation and all these things become very important. That when we are generating this content, it is not being generated from thin air. It is being generated from some source. So the outputs we are focusing on. But Trevor, what about the inputs that are going into building these models? Should we also be looking into that?
And I'm going to get to that because I have a question for everybody here that I'm curious as to your thoughts on it. Interestingly enough, and let me tell you a really quick story. A colleague of mine, and this is where chat continues to impress me. A colleague of mine had an issue with a networking piece of hardware. It was a firewall. It's a Meraki firewall. And there was an issue that they were having getting into a component of the firewall to reconfigure it, right? And it's like, look, do you know anybody from Cisco? Because we've been trying to figure this thing out and we can't figure it out. And I was like, yeah, I know a couple of people from Cisco, but 2 days ago I read this article by a network engineer that he was talking about how AI is going to change how network engineers work. And what it was, he actually used ChatGPT to figure out and troubleshoot a problem on a switch and a router. So I told my colleague, I said, listen, send me the model of the firewall and tell me the problem you're having. I put a prompt into ChatGPT saying, can you please act like you're a network engineer from Cisco Meraki. I'm having a problem doing this. Please tell me how I can go about fixing this issue. Boom! Step by step. It's like, call back on my friend and say, hey, just try these instructions and let me know how that works for you. I'm curious, Chat is doing some very interesting things that way. But one of the things I wanted to ask you about, and just to preface the question, all of these AI models learn based on large data sets and massive learning models. And one of the things that we know is that the output when you prompt for information is based on what it has learned from. If it is that the information that is out there is not fully accurate, or it's out of date, or it's just plain old wrong, you're going to get bad information. Now, I was on a panel some time ago speaking about AI, and one of the concerns that we had was, okay, when people are now using AI technology to get information about Jamaica, right? Jamaica. The outputs are subject to what everybody else says about Jamaica, right?
Yeah.
how can we look to ensure that our reality, you know, as it relates to what happens in Jamaica, what Jamaica's accurate reality is? I mean, you know, a couple months ago, you prompted ChatGPT and asked it, you know, what's the most popular mode of transport in rural Jamaica? They tell you a horse. No. So how do we ensure that the information that we know to be true about our country is put out there so that the data sets that are being used to teach all of these platforms and so on
Yeah.
accurately reflect what we want to convey and portray? Because if we don't do that, then what you may find is that, and I'll use the word nefarious actors, will seek to craft an appearance of Jamaica, and feed that into the data sets and the learning models. And then what you'll start finding is that the information is kind of off about Jamaica, but if it's believable enough, then it will be true. How can we look to fix that? Joel, I see
Yeah.
you jumping at the bit for answer.
Yeah, man, because I have a thought. I don't want to forget.
On that one.
Yeah, so the main thought I have on that question is the current models that we have, the terminology they have for them is foundational models. So because these models are not search engines, it's best for us to look at them as reasoning engines. So because they're reasoning engines, what they have been doing with them these days is they are now allowing these models to browse the internet. So because they can browse the internet and utilize the internet as a retrieval system, the models can get up-to-date, relevant, accurate information, say about Jamaica, about things that are currently happening in the world, and then reason around that information. So I think even though that capability exists, if someone wants to do something nefarious, to do something that is misaligned, something that has a bad or negative intent, they can still do so. But the world that we're moving in with these models is models that are reaching out for information, especially the capability of multimodal models will soon be here, where these models will not only be consuming text, but also voice and video and images. So the models will be able to see. So watch YouTube per se to get relevant information based on current trends. So I think at the end of the day, the models will be able to get up-to-date information, but as the entire panel has been alluding, it's based on what you want to do. If you want to do something negative, the technology will be there, and if you want to do something positive, it will be available. But we're hoping that the guardrails that the creators of these models are putting in place and the policies from governments and organizations like WEF. I was at the WEF HQ in Switzerland last week, and talking about the fourth industrial revolution. And these things, we're hoping that these organizations and as a country, we can put guardrails in place so that we can stop the misuse.
Got you. Prof. Mansingh, your thoughts really quickly.
Okay. You asked a question. I don't think it's. I'm going to differ from Joel because I think your question is what exists for data in the knowledge source that these tools are using may be more negative than positive too. So that's what we have to be mindful about, the bias which exists in the data because it was created by someone else that is being used. It's not all created by us. So that's something which we have to be careful about. But even, I look at some of the apps. There's one which, as soon as ChatGPT had come up, there was one which I had seen called travelaround.io, www.travelaround.io, and it can give you a travel itinerary in no time. And I had experimented it for Jamaica, and I was not happy with it because it was taking me up to mountains and to the beach on the same day. So it was just, going to a point A to point B versus having a experience. So I think there are, there will be issues if these tools are being used by people without any sense of what is reality on the ground. Whereas I'm talking of some of the apps which didn't do well, whereas, some of my students had created an app in which they were using data of pronunciations in patois, and using machine learning to really match it back to somebody who's trying to learn patois. So you could speak into it and it will tell you how good your accent is in a person. So some of these things are there for us, which is good AI applications versus some AI applications may not work well for Jamaica. So because the data has been created by elsewhere. So we have to be mindful about that, I think, Trevor.
Right. Adrian, your thoughts
Yeah,
on that?
yeah. I'll do it quickly. So it's funny. Around 10 years ago, I was in a startup and we were developing an AI tool to help women travelers travel safely. And we're pulling data from the UN, from police reports, from Twitter, and all over the place. And the initial version was not good. And it wasn't good for two reasons. Credibility. Each source was weighted equally. That's not true. Twitter versus a police report, there's a different level of uh, how much you can trust that data,
Yeah.
how refined it is. And in some cases, not where you think, because for a police report, if it was written by a man, the man may not take a crime related to a female as seriously, right? So for these models, you are going to need to also label the data in a way where you have credible sources. So Google kind of did something similar with their algorithm, where PageRank, they said, oh, a lot of people refer to this website, so this website is probably reputable. So give it more weight. The next one is context. The individuals you're affecting should have a say in what they're making, which is going to be a bit harder. But if we're talking about a company in the US or UK developing a model that's going to reflect or report on Jamaica, we need Jamaican representation in how the model is communicating Jamaican data and Jamaican information. So it's kind of like if you need advice on something, you have a specific person you'll go to based on what they've said to you in the past, right? If you want to know how to check a girl, you may not go to your pastor. You may go to your friend who thinks he's a ladies' man, right? So I think those two things are the initial baseline for getting us to a point where we'll get better results from it. But we don't have any control right now over it, which is the biggest issue. We're using tools developed by other people who are going to impact how we can even see ourselves. You have a 12-year-old who's using ChatGPT to do a report about Jamaica, and he keeps saying Jamaica is the most dangerous country in the world, and they don't respect this and that. It's going to get into their head. They're going to write in the report, they're going to believe it, and they're going to carry their entire life with this information, not even considering it something incorrect or something to verify. So it's going to have a big impact on young persons growing up with this, infusing all the applications that they utilize currently.
So what I'm hearing is, you know, as we have to responsibly and promote responsible use of this technology, but as we use it, we need to create systems that fact check the AI, right?
Yeah.
So that in much the same way that Chat created something that could check whether or not what it wrote was written by AI and so on. We need to make sure that the information that is being put out can be verified. Now this and this is how I'm looking to close it out. This has some very serious implications as it relates to information and the media, because the era of social media has created hundreds of thousands of media houses, aka bloggers, and the notion that everybody is a credible source starts to come into interesting focus. A similar kind of thing can happen with AI. It's just like you're not seeing the source of the information in front of you. With that said, what are some of because obviously this is going to affect things at not only a local or business level, a national level, right? So what are some of the things that policymakers and governments need to pay attention to when we're talking about the use of AI, the guardrails required for this. I mean, we've seen where the EU is working on legislation for AI. The United States has started down that path as well. Both interesting, they're taking very different approaches. But I kind of wanted to get from you guys, you know, what are some of the things that you think policymakers need to do, need to think about? What are some of the things we need to tell our policymakers to consider when it comes to embracing responsible use of AI at a national level for our country? Prof, I'll start with you on that one.
First, Trevor, I would just like to point out, I think media is also very concerned about generative AI and its capabilities. And I think they have to play a bigger role because social media, as the word suggests, social, should remain for social purposes. But when it comes to real, news, it should be with the media houses. They should take responsibility of what they're putting out, double checking, triple checking. I don't know how many times checking if it's AI generated or not AI generated. So those are some of the things that media houses will have to play a bigger role with. And I think they are mindful of that because both Adrian and I had sat on a panel when they were having a discussion similar to this. Now, EU Act, I think a lot of the focus is on the output as to what the products that are being created, whether they examine the risk of the products. They're saying that if they're generated by AI, you should state what they are. I feel that they're not focusing on the inputs of what the data is being fed into. And I don't know if that boat is long gone, and you really can't focus on that at all. But with all the data that these people are using, let's say, for example, if they're using data on a single reggae artist and creating music, right? There is some issues with that of copyright or whatever legal implications. But say that they were to take all the genre of reggae and ska and put it into training purposes and generate music from that. Nobody could do anything about it. So because it's not infringing on any copyright because it's the whole genre and not just a single person. So I think there are the input of the data, how it's being used. There has to be some responsibility about that, and I think that is lacking. I think EU Act is, and I think Jamaica should be mindful about that because Jamaica can, be disadvantaged because we are a very creative industry too.
So what should our policymakers do? What? I mean, this is a complex thing.
It is,
what do they need to do? What do they need to be aware of, and how do they need to approach this? Because what you're saying could affect numerous industries in this country if we don't put the necessary things in place to manage this stuff. And what do our policymakers need to be aware of? What do they need to do to make sure that nationally we're protected against them? Adrian, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so first thing you need to do is hire everybody on a panel for a big project. First step. But I think a big thing, and jumping on what Prof is saying, is they need to expand the scope of the regulations. Because if a scammer is using an AI tool to scam, it's the same crime effectively. The difference is the tool that they've utilized, right? But we may not have specific laws in place that speak to using generative AI to impersonate someone's voice and automatically scam them, right? We may have it to you call a person impersonating someone else as a human and you scam them out of that. So they need to expand it and look more on the effect and then tie it to the cause. Yeah, it's just a tool, a technology like anything else. There's a big situation going on with deep fakes being used to harass women abroad, influencers, right? And none of them have been able to get any form of legal recourse out of it because the laws don't speak to using deep fakes to harass women. But it's still harassment. It's still preying on them psychologically and mentally, right? They just haven't expanded the law.
their deep fakes have been used to kidnap kids as well.
Yeah, so they
Where,
need to. Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. So they need to expand it out. It's the same bad actors. Just have a new tool, but the tool is in the same output. They're stealing money. They're stealing assets. They're stealing people, taking away some form of freedom. Right? It's in general buckets. But the big thing is they don't really understand how these tools work, and the scope isn't there. So these scammers could probably get away with it, or even get a reduced sentence. They say, "Oh, it's just a fake image. It's not even a real image of you."
right,
But it's still represented in a bad light, right? So I think that's something that you really need to look at. Understand how the AI works on a base level, but then really create like a register of what these individuals, these bad actors can do, and then tie them to a current law or a current regulation, and then expand the writing, right? The legalese based on that. I think that, well, I'm not a legal expert, but to me, that's the most straightforward thing to start doing. And then you start pushing and getting your advocates in place to change and expand these laws.
right. Joel, you had mentioned in your opening remarks that you're keen on seeing how the legislation will either be created or put in place for this. So what are some of your views as it relates to this particular aspect? What are some of the things you think we need to tell the policymakers and the lawmakers and governments as it relates to putting in, as you say, the guardrails to make sure that AI is responsibly used?
Yeah. Yeah, I think one of the I'll be coming from a different angle. I think one of the things I hope that we do not do is stifle creativity while we're putting these guardrails in place. Because I've noticed that as they have worked to improve the models, it also limits the functionality based on how the models operate. So as we go about creating these policies and guidelines, we want to ensure that we are not stifling creativity and innovation. It's a really complex question to answer because it's like an evolving landscape. I honestly, I don't think. So from a programmer standpoint, I'm excited that this technology is available. But from the human standpoint, I think that when the technology was being deployed, there should have been the policy component beside it. So now it's through the gate, and we're trying to create policies. And as we're creating policies, newer models and newer capabilities will be coming out. So I guess we just have to keep our politicians and our policymakers plugged into the international arena. There are several organizations that are really pushing these conversations forward, with the EU, etc., and just hope that we can join these global alliances that are actually governing these systems. I think, to close this thought, I think the next thing that we're going to have to be doing is just human verification. So we're going to have to get a bit further with how we go about verifying what is human, what was posted by a human or not. And that, again, will be a complex undertaking. Looking
Right.
forward to seeing it.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of that. I mean, I've looked at the draft EU legislation, and I mean, they're taking a risk-based approach at, one of the things they have made a big deal of is ensuring, and I noticed in Sam Altman's um, congressional presentation, one of the big things that they're talking about is ensuring that it is now required to tell people when they are engaging with AI and when they're engaging with humans, because it's so difficult to tell. To the untrained eye, Andre would have looked like a regular human being. But one of the things they're saying must happen is that there must be notification that what or who you're engaging with is AI, not human. Um, so and you're right. It's a very difficult balancing act between, keeping things, ethical, unbiased, and so on, but allowing innovation to thrive, right? So I think our policymakers, as Adrian has said, they need to call on the subject matter experts to help guide some of their deliberations on this kind of thing. And hopefully we can, come up with some sound policies and guidelines and laws to treat with this stuff. So um, uh, what I would like to do now, because we're up on our time, I see that there have been uh, uh, some questions in the chat. I will just take one here uh, from Anne-Marie Brown. Her question is: are the cybersecurity, or this is cybercrime and data protection acts, um, still not able to create a starting point to protect our citizens? I think from that standpoint, it goes to what Adrian was saying. We need to broaden the scope of some of the existing legislation to speak to this stuff, so that the rapidly evolving space can be contemplated in some of our laws. Listen, I want to thank everyone for tuning in. I want to thank our panel, Joel, Adrian, Prof. Mansingh. This was a really good discussion. Hopefully we can have another discussion like this, because AI is topical and it will be for some time. Again, thanks so much to the panelists. Thank you so much for everyone who tuned in. And again, let me just do some quick housekeeping. Tech Talk Tuesday for next month, into tech. That's what the topic will be. July 13th, we're going to have the members mingle. More information will come on our social media platforms, and all of the social media platforms for JTDA, you can access them at the JTDA. And again, don't forget to look at how you can donate to the Tech Alliance Fund. To do that, you can go to the JTDA website, jtda.org. All right, so thanks again, everyone. It was great. Again, thank you to all our viewers. As if somebody saying it can't finish yet. Well, we could speak about this all day, literally. We have to sign off. So again, perhaps we will have a part 2 to this discussion, and invite everyone again. So thank you, everyone. Thanks, panelists.
Thanks, everyone.
I didn't create
thanks, everyone.
an exit from Andre. I didn't have time to create that one. So imagine it in your heads. Thank you, everybody.
All right, one plug. I almost forgot.
Thank you.
So StarApple has launched a Caribbean-wide AI art competition, and we're trying to do it ethically. So submissions have to explain how they created the art, as well as the inspiration, artists that were utilized, cash prizes, win hotel trips, all of that stuff. So www.starapple.ai/LACAI. Anyone can enter. No age restriction, just have an adult representing you for your submission. But yeah, should be fun, and get involved in AI.
All right. Thanks a lot.
All right.
All
All right,
Thank
cheers.
you, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Yeah.